Church, I broke my back. It's spinal. Can you help me? You know I have a video on injuries, right? That can definitely help you out. You do? Can we watch it together, please? Hey man, let's do that right now. What's up everybody? My name is Gilbert Church. I'm a high school strength and conditioning coach. I'm a PE teacher in Harlem. And today, we're gonna be talking about injury, and more specifically, what is your game plan when you get injured? When you get an ache, when you get a pain, when you get a sharp stabbing sensation from whatever it is that you may be doing, what is your game plan to fix it? Are you just sitting there waiting for it to get better? Are you giving it some ice? Are you resting it? These are things we're going to discuss in this video. Today's whole point is to give you a blueprint, a game plan, a script to follow for when you get an injury and you want to get back on your feet or back to doing whatever activity you love a little bit faster than you normally would if you just did nothing. And in some cases, doing nothing will never actually solve the problem. So today we're going to talk about a game plan. We're going to relate it to my own life with my knees, and then I'm going to tell you some no-nos at the end of the video. And hopefully this gives you a framework for how to deal with some nagging injuries that you may or may not have and prepare you for the future ones that definitely will. Because if you're a human, you will experience some sort of joint or muscle or ache or pain at some point in your life, and you should have a strategy for how to deal with it. Let's get right to it. Enter Gilbert about 1 year ago, about 25 pounds up and chasing some heavy weights. I had some neck meat, I had this big old power belly, and man, did weights feel light. I was on a training program. I had this goal of hitting a 405 back squat. It's something I've been chasing for a while, and I was getting deliciously close to hitting it. I was getting into these rep ranges where I was hitting 355 for a set of 6, hit 365 for a set of 5. I was getting very, very close to these numbers that would indicate that I could hit 405 for 1. And I was pumped. I was into my training. It was going well. I was consistently progressing. Good things were happening. Except that I started getting pain in my knees. Specifically, I started getting pain on the lateral side, so on the outside of the knee, on both knees, and it felt like basic tendonitis. Like any respecting gym bro idiot in his 20s, I ignored it. I continued to follow my training plan. I continued to squat heavy. I continued to deadlift heavy. I continued to pursue this progression and this goal of a 405 back squat. And I ran into some serious problems because I ignored it. So instead of taking that initial pain and that initial injury and forming a game plan around doing something about it, I ignored it and I continued to train. And this led me down a pretty dark road where it got to the point where, yes, I was hitting these really, really big numbers. I was getting strong. I was feeling good underneath a heavy barbell. But on the flip side, the pain was starting to really affect my everyday life. Like crouching down when I opened up the refrigerator to get vegetables out of the bottom drawer, painful. Putting my pants on in the morning when I'm lifting my knees up, painful. Doing any sort of running or sprinting or playing with the kids while I was in PE class, painful. And part of the deal was I just kept ignoring it. I wanted to train. I wasn't really taking the PT side of things seriously. I wasn't thinking about a game plan for injury. I wasn't thinking about what I should have been doing to actually make that pain go away so I could continue to train and continue to hit the gym hard. And the wheels fell off. Both knees got to the point where they hurt so bad that I just had to decide that I had to place training on the side. I did a squat session where basically I couldn't bend down below 45 degrees and it got to the point where the pain was making the training absolutely no fun. And I had to take a step back from the training and take a step away from that goal of hitting 405 and sort of reevaluate, hey, what's the goal here? Why am I training? I know I want to do this for the rest of my life. What's the deal? How am I going to attack this moving forward? And the idea was I had to get rid of the pain first. I had to learn how to train pain-free. I had to learn how to deal with this injury in my knees before I could continue to pursue that goal. Which led me to this game plan right here. It's a 4-step game plan. It applies to any injury that you may come across. It could be elbow, wrist, knee, pain, hip, whatever, low back. It applies, you just have to do some thinking about it and a lot of hard work behind it. So let's talk about this game plan and let's relate it to how I cured the tendonitis in my knees. Step number 1, eliminate the source. What does that mean? That means eliminate the source of pain. If you're doing movements that cause you pain, you don't do those movements. Shocker, mind-blowing, crazy, incredible, mind-blowing idea, I know. And for whatever reason, idiots like myself tend to ignore this and keep trying to do the same movement over and over and over again. For me, this meant eliminating squats because that's what made my knees hurt. Right? It also meant eventually eliminating deadlifts, and it eventually meant eliminating lunges as well, as I realized those things were also bothering my knees at the time. And I had to eliminate sources of pain. If you continue to do movements that cause you pain, even if you want to progress, right? It's like picking at a scab over and over and over again. And the more you pick at that scab, the more likely it is to scar. Sort of same concept with pain in the joints. If you keep picking at that scab, it's only going to get worse. You have to eliminate the source of the pain. For me, that meant all the fun stuff that I love to do, like squats, deadlifts, lunges, big heavy leg days, out. Rule number 2, mobilize upstream and downstream. So when I say mobilize, maybe some of you don't know exactly what that term means, but that basically means use a foam roller, use a lacrosse ball, and attack the sections of your body that are above and below the pain. It's really, really rare that the spot that's causing pain, right? So for example, my knee, it's really rare that my knee is actually the source of the pain. In this case, for me, I had some really, really tight hips that I had to dig into with a lacrosse ball and dig into, the side of my IT band with a foam roller, and then make sure that my ankles were actually in a good mobile position where they were feeling flexible and good, so I could actually get my knee into a good position. But step number 2 is mobilize upstream and downstream before you end up doing any sort of training for the day. Step number 3, find pain-free movements. Now, I don't mean like, okay, both my knees are hurting, let me just do some shoulder presses and this is actually going to help restore them. No, we've got to find some way to use our knees that don't cause pain, but still can get a lot of blood flow to them. And we'll talk a little bit more blood flow with number 4 here. But for me, when I was looking for a pain-free movement, I was working hard to try and figure out something that would work for my knees. I couldn't squat, I couldn't lunge, I couldn't deadlift, I couldn't do Bulgarian split squats. Any sort of thing with any big amount of knee flexion was really problematic, and I didn't have access to machines like a squat press or something like that. But then it dawned on me that partial ranges of motion were still bending at the knee. So when I say partial range of motion, I'm bending my knee, just not all the way, just maybe even a little bit. The movement that took the biggest advantage of a partial range of movement for me was a reverse sled drag. So I found out that if I drag a sled, I could bend my knees slightly and I could move that sled and I could do it pain-free, which leads us to step number 4, move, and move a lot. So I did sled drags a ton. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I would try and drag a sled up to 8 to 10 times for about 100 feet. I had 90 seconds of rest in between, and I built up to 8 to 10 plates. And what this would do was get a ton of blood flow going into my quads and going right around the source of my knees. And it was washing that joint in blood, essentially. And your body's ability with blood is taking out a lot of congestion and a lot of pain around that area, and then restoring it with vitamins and nutrients that our bloodstream transports around the body. Blood flow is one of the biggest keys to actually curing and helping any sort of nagging pain or joint problem that we may or may not have. So I did this for about 3 months. Lo and behold, tendonitis in my knees went away. I was able to start doing air squats again. I was able to start doing light deadlifts again. I was able to start doing light back squats again. And I've slowly been building from there. If you take this game plan, again, you can apply it to any joint or pain you may have. It applies to the elbow, it applies to the wrist, it applies to even your back. You have to eliminate the source of pain, right? Don't do movements that cause you pain. Mobilize upstream and downstream. Do a little bit of body work with a lacrosse ball or a foam roller and do it above and below those sites of pain, and usually that has some decent cash out. Number 3, find some pain-free movements. Do whatever you can to find movements that use the injured area but don't actually cause it pain. If this is something like a back injury, you can do something like a plank or a side plank or some bird dogs. Anything of that nature to try and get some blood flow there. And then number 4, move. Move a lot. The best restorative thing you can do for any injury when it regards tissue, tendons, musculature, or joints is to get blood flowing there and make it hot and get sweaty doing it. And that is going to help you cure yourself a lot faster than just sitting there and doing nothing. Use this game plan. And before we leave for today, I'm going to go over 2 no-nos when we're dealing with injury. One of them is do not rest it. Okay, let me clarify this. If you are in such great pain and you had a huge acute injury, sometimes the only thing you can do is rest. But the moment you can get some sort of movement, some sort of flexion going on with some minimal pain, we're talking like no more than 3 on the pain scale, then it's time to start moving. It's time to start trying to get some kind of blood flow in there. Because again, if you rest it, we're not actually getting a lot of blood going to that system. It's going to take much longer to get better. The moment we can get some movement with some muscle contractions going on, the faster we can increase the healing process and help ourselves out. The second thing, and I hope I don't set the world on fire when I say this, I don't mean to bring down any sort of orthopedic basic thing, whatever, but avoid icing it. This is old school knowledge. It was the best information people had at the time, but this is slowly being ruled out as not the most effective way to treat injury. Does icing it reduce swelling? Yes. Does icing it take away pain? Awesome. If you're using it to take away pain and reduce swelling, ice is awesome. But if you're actually trying to heal whatever it is that you are trying to fix at the moment, ice is not great. Your body's natural reaction is to flood that system with a lot of blood. And yes, while that is painful, it's actually somewhat helpful. And then your body's job is to remove that congestion with a lot of blood flow. Ice slows down blood flow, and therefore ice is actually going to hinder the healing process as opposed to moving it forward in a progressive way. This one right here is worth an entire video in itself, but I'm just going to say it. If your initial reaction and your knee-jerk thought process is, oh, I need an ice pack for something, start thinking again. Start thinking, I need to eliminate any painful movements. I need to get it moving as fast as I can, and I need to try and get as much blood flow as I possibly can to that spot. That should be the new paradigm that you should be thinking about when dealing with any sort of injury. It's helped me in a ton of places, and ice has, I've never really felt a difference with ice. Maybe it was a placebo effect, but I've never felt a bigger difference with this. Blood flow, on the other hand, there have been days where I've thought I pulled something and then I've gotten a lot of blood to the area and I've woken up feeling fine the next day. Make use of that game plan. Avoid doing these 2 things whenever you get injured, and you're going to be on an awesome path to dealing with any sort of injury that may come in your future or one that you're dealing with right now. And as always, if you've made it to the end of the video, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. If you comment, I will comment back. I have commented on every single comment that has been put in the stream thus far. If you have questions about the video, drop them there. I will answer them. And until next time, I will see you Monday.